Hello and welcome to the Cardboard Guide. In this section, we have Cardboard Conversations, and with us today, we have a very special guest. We have Joshua, also known online and on his YouTube channel as Lord of Itza. Welcome, and let's hear a little about you, Joshua.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Been looking forward to this. We've been trying to plan this for a bit, and finally we're able to get together, so that's fantastic. In terms of me, I'm just a sorcery fan, and spent a lot of time going to events, helping with the Courtesan Cup and Sorcery Con and Gen Con and judging at those events. And I help judge Seas at the Core virtually. Obviously, my little YouTube channel that I've made for fun. And just so everyone knows, it is for fun. I'm not that serious. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm a civil servant in terms of my private life. I've got 3 kids, and they all just moved in this past year, so that's been fun. It's been a big adjustment, especially while trying to do this.
Interesting. I could imagine. So just out of curiosity, what prompted you to do some content for Sorcery? Because, I mean, it looks like it's like very recent. And did you just want to jump into content, or what prompted you?
I don't know. It seemed like a fun thing. And I've been gaming for years and years and years, all sorts of games. Primarily, I left TCGs a very long time ago, went into the board game space, miniature tabletop games. Warhammer Fantasy was my big game until they killed it. But I thought, this would be fun, and it's not that hard to do initially. I mean, if you just want to throw videos up, it's not that difficult. Now, if you want to do all the fun refining stuff that you do that I don't do, that's a lot more difficult. But I just decided, let's give this a shot. I mean, I love sorcery. I love the game. And there wasn't a lot of sorcery content. So I thought, you know what? I'm just some old guy, but maybe it would help. More videos, more people talking about it. Maybe that would actually help the game spread. So that's why I kind of did it.
Awesome. And I mean, it's great. And that's also really cool about YouTube. It's very accessible. It really is just like start a video, press play, and just go for it. And I think clearly a lot of people are enjoying your videos, and the channel is definitely getting some traction. So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, no, it's been fun, and I mean, I watch your stuff that you guys put up because I'm like, well, maybe I can get some ideas so I don't look like such a goof. But
yeah, but I think that's also what people really appreciate, that everybody has their own sort of style of content, and it makes for a great variation. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. And, just raising awareness of sorcery and getting the message out there that we have this, really awesome game. I think that's really cool. But I'm just curious, Joshua. So, you backed away from TCGs a long time ago and then went into board games and miniature war games. What was it about sorcery that, attracted you back into this TCG realm again?
I've always enjoyed card games. I always have, but I just, the set releases, the constant money sink for me was too much. It's just, I'm a civil servant. I don't make millions of dollars. So, those other games were cheaper to play in. Even if I spent what some people would consider way too much, it still was much, much cheaper to do those things than it was to do a TCG. And once I found out that Sorcery was a once per year release, I was like, oh, it's the game that was made for me.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because a lot of people seem to be like coming out of TCG retirement with Sorcery. And a lot of people also mention that like this once per year release is really something that's attracting them to the game. It's more like you can even have a little bit of a break, do other stuff, and then still be able to follow along. How would you feel? Let's just dive right into it. How would you feel if they went, okay, so guys, we've decided we have the capacity, we have the artists, we're going to do twice a year. How would that sit with you?
I think twice a year is fine as well. Although I do wonder about how many cards are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because that's another big thing, right? Being able to collect 250 card sets, that's doable. Now, if we're talking a 400 card set and a 250 card set, then I think they're starting to move away from the model, what the people they're trying to attract. If we start to get, or maybe it's 2 400 card sets, then I think they're moving away from that model. I don't think that would turn me off right away, but I could see it turning off a few folks. I don't know. How would you feel about it?
Like initially, I think like for me, I wouldn't mind them upping the pace, but I would rather have like maybe a set every 9 months.
Yes.
Every half year. I really am enjoying just really getting into it, playing deck text, and just really having fun with collecting. So I think like twice a year, it might be like, especially as you say, if it's going to be like 350, 400, that's a lot of cards.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing that scares me the most, right? Like if they did 250 card sets, I think that's fine. That's what a typical year release I think should be, is that 400 card range, just because people are gonna, I don't think our community is large enough yet to where everyone breaks the set immediately. No. It takes a lot of time. People discover new strategies, and it's just because there aren't as many of us constantly going through and breaking stuff. So that's why I'm like, well, two sets that are smaller, I could also see, but you run into a lot of issues. Well, do you put pre-cons in there? How do you build those pre-cons? And we've seen, we need pre-cons.
Exactly. And I think like everybody had like a common sense of, yay, finally, pre-cons are coming with the new set with Gothic, as we've just heard that it's going to be called. And I think that's extremely important. And you see it everywhere, all over the world, that having like some sort of beginner product that people can get started with, get a feel for the game, and sort of decide if they want to buy a full box. Because for a lot of people, that is a lot of money to spend on a new game that you don't know if you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and that's the big thing. I mean, we have both bought boxes. We're invested in the game, but now that I've really tried to start my local community up, getting people to that box level is tough.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you doing? Have you made like pre-cons out of your bulk? Do you have some beta pre-cons? What are you doing to build community in your store?
So what I did was I started with a Learn to Play event. And then everyone that participated, I was fortunate enough to have enough beta bulk that I provided everyone with a complete set of ordinaries from beta who participated.
Oh, nice.
So complete set of ordinaries. Here it is. You can build with this. You can make a deck. And then getting that much product, I found a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'm going to go buy a few packs then. Right. Yeah. So then they supplemented it right away. And they knew they had enough to build with because they had that complete set of ordinaries. And in this time period where we don't have the pre-cons yet, I think handing someone a complete set of ordinaries, which a lot of folks can't do, but if you can, I think that's a real way to bait people in, because there are a lot of great ordinaries in Sorcery or in beta. So
for sure. And especially for beta. I mean, so many of the ordinaries, so many of the exceptionals are going to be like key components in your constructed decks. So, I mean, if you have the opportunity, and we've been doing like a lot of like porcery decks, so ordinaries and exceptionals, trying to hand those off. Yes. We've even been sending a few of we had like a couple of extra beta precons, shipping them off to people in Europe, because Europe is especially, we're suffering a bit from that lack of precons, and especially because they were never really enough to begin with. So that's, but it's not a great solution, but it'll make do until we get more precons.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I really wish they could fix the issues in Europe. I mean, I feel like that was a big market, and I'm sure that there's all sorts of, it's the import stuff and all that's a huge issue. It's very difficult for a small team that's probably never dealt with that to understand and get through, and like, oh my God, all these logistics. But, that would be the one thing that I would really love to see, is if they could somehow, and I don't know, one of the big sellers, if they could ship a bunch of that stuff over to you folks or someone over there who's facilitating the game, just to pass out those types of decks like you're mentioning.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we've even had some like really kind people who like, okay, so if you're building all these bulk decks, can I just like pass on some of the bulk? And I mean, of course, that's amazing, but it is sort of like a temporary fix for the real deal, especially because you get that extra beta pack. And I mean, that really does make a difference, because if you open something really cool in that one beta pack, I mean, you're hooked, right? Then that's all the fun and the great experience.
Not to mention that you're also going to need the sites.
Yeah.
Building a sorcery deck with enough sites is actually kind of hard if you do not have access to precons or, buy vast amounts of boxes.
Yes.
So,
Well, and that was the really nice thing they did with the Arthurian Legends, though, right?
Yeah.
We got all those ordinary sites in AL. It's not just the one on the back. I think that has really helped in terms of if you're able to like make those decks. Now we've got some sites that we can throw in and not have to rely on the villages and the rivers we're only getting one copy of out of every pack.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we also talked about that. It really feels like a very deliberate move. Yes. We actually started the conversation on like, okay, but sites or mana in early Magic was really a stopper for many people because you couldn't get a hold of enough of them. And that was really a great fix with Arthurian Legends, just really getting a lot of great utility sites out. And of course, also the draft kit. What do you think of the draft kit and the Spellslinger?
I really like that kit. I think it was a wonderful idea to get us away from Sorcerer. I think using Sorcerer in the draft format was fundamentally problematic just because of how powerful Sorcerer is in general. So having something that's like, look, we're going to dumb down the power level to the power level of draft, which we can all agree is much less than constructed. So I was very pleased to see them create that, to create something specifically designed to give you a little bit of a boost, but not the full power of a regular avatar. I think it was great. The sites themselves, I think it was an interesting choice, especially after seeing Arthurian Legends, because now we have all these sites in these packs that have abilities. So it almost makes me wonder, should they have made the sites like that? I mean, I think you had to. But if the sets going forward are like Arthurian Legends, is it possible you'll draft enough sites? Maybe not, but well, probably not. But still, the necessity of them diminishes, although it does fix one of the problems with those kits that I had, which I didn't feel there were enough sites in them.
Yeah.
So, by actually having more sites in AL like they do, it does fix that one problem that I saw with the draft kits. I was like, because I've used them. And it was like, everybody needs this or that, right? They need this one or that one, and there's never enough.
Yeah, and that was one thing that I was wondering about. I mean, it feels like there should just have been just a few more sites of everything, because if anyone decides to go like mono element, and if everybody sort of decides on the same, then you're going to be stuck because there's not enough in there to fully support that.
Yeah. And that was the one thing, right? Because every kit's 4 people, which means they can each get 4 copies of the sites, I think. Is that right? That sounds right. So that's just not enough unless, you get the perfect blend in your pod where you can take 8, someone else takes 8 of the other, whatever.
Exactly. But I mean, realistically, that doesn't happen all that often, I imagine. People tend to play favorites. So, Joshua, we have so many interesting topics for tonight, and I feel like we got a little bit of an extra bonus with the Gothic spoiler and the name spoiler, and of course, we're going to have to get into that a bit later. But going into 2025, what are your highlights for 2024? What was some of the moments or events or anything where you were like, okay, that was really cool?
Yeah, I mean, the 3 major events that I attended, which were the Coruscant Cup, Gen Con, and Sorcery Con, those were it for me. Coruscant Cup was very interesting because we had so much of the real art there at the event. I think there were like 20 plus pieces there, including I brought Eremos Mercenaries, as well as the sketch of Eremos Mercenaries. Angerworm contributed numerous pieces to really have that, to see all of that real art in the play area was incredible. So that was probably the biggest highlight for me of the Coruscant Cup, was to see all the art and for it to actually be there. Then we had Gen Con. I attend Gen Con every year. Have you guys been?
No.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. So you've been to Spiel though. So you get Spiel, I get Gen Con. Hopefully we can trade at some point or show up.
Absolutely.
Deal.
I'm a Gen Con veteran. I go every year. It's literally 45 minutes north of where I live.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I can go. I experience it every year, and I love it. This was the first Gen Con that I have worked for someone or a company since 2004. So it was very different to go out and help Eric's Curiosa and judge the events there at Gen Con. I didn't get to do all the things I usually do at Gen Con, but it was awesome because I didn't spend a lot of money.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then, of course, Sorcery Con was incredible. I mean, that was really the way to cap out the year. I've never been to Vegas. It was interesting to see Vegas. Not my cup of tea. Nice to see it. We'll definitely go back for Sorcery Con. And it was wonderful there just to finally meet Eric. Although I didn't get a chance to talk to him a lot. Again, I was judging a lot of events and helping out there. But it was a fantastic time. And that event, Eric's Curiosa, provided so much cool stuff to be raffled off as part of the prizing. It was really awesome to see all of those things.
Oh, that's epic. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I really do hope we actually get to be in the same room at some point. We have a comment here just saying, just learned about this game a few days ago, and I love everything about it. I might even be a bit obsessed. Welcome to the pack. We are all a bit sorcery obsessed there. So you are just in the right place right now. Well, what about you? What was your favorite sorcery moment? Playing, having fun, getting eaten by Swedish custom dogs?
Oh yeah, that was that might have been the favorite moment. But wasn't that last year? I can't really remember how far back that was. But yeah, being pulled over and stripped down by Swedish custom police, that was definitely a highlight. Very fun. Nice dogs.
No.
But I actually made it to what's the capital? Stockholm, yeah. 1 hour late or so. So that was a bit stressful, but it was very fun. It was definitely some of that early vibe, a little, very little tournament being built up from the ground up, and it was great. Meeting Ragnar, meeting Matthias. And getting some of those Mind Explosion signed.
Oh, yeah.
That was also a highlight. It was just really cool, really cozy. Yeah. But, playing sorcery is it's great every time. So there's been a lot of small tournaments, and I've really enjoyed just being out there and playing and meeting people.
Yes.
For sure. Awesome. So we also have a new set coming, hopefully in Q1 of 2025, which is the mini set, the Dragon Lord set. So what was your initial reaction to hearing 13 cards?
I'm worried. I'm worried about 13 cards. I'm worried about how you package it. I'm worried about how you add a chase to it. How do you add a chase? Because I don't want to buy the same 13 cards over and over and over again to chase whatever I'm chasing. That's my big concern with it. I think now it sounds like, and I don't know if you guys saw, Ed made a gigantic post on my video when I talked about it. He was like, nah.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like it's going to have a lot. It might actually have an interesting game mechanic added to the game. So maybe we see finally multiplayer sorcery, a formal recognition of that in a formal format. All the work that I think Beast at the Bay, I think those were the guys that had put a lot of work into creating that multiplayer format. So it'd be cool if that's what it's geared to do, if we create that multiplayer format with those 13 cards. But I still have a worry about how it's going to be marketed and presented and how we're going to purchase it and get it, because we're all going to want to get it.
Exactly. It was very interesting because we, of course, did a really long interview with Ed Beard Jr. He was very kind with his time, and I actually really had to edit it down. So what's on the channel is just a little bit of that conversation. And he was very, as he also was in the same post on your video, adamant about this being a product that was widely available, that he definitely had the understanding that it would be in LGSs. And that is very interesting because I would have sworn that this is not an LGS suitable product because it does not stand alone when you only have 13 cards, even if they're amazing and groundbreaking, it really does need some support. But that might have changed with the beta reprint. I mean, that might also be a way to sort of support that very, very small set. So it will be interesting to see. How do you feel like the collectibility can be addressed? Because there have been like different options floating. Are there any of those options that you support or like the idea of?
I mean, I think with 13 cards, you have to make it a product. You buy it and you have your play set.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do. And then there's the question of the chase element. We know they're going to make foils of these cards.
Yes.
And I don't think they want to make them dust rewards, right?
Nope.
So how do you make it a chase? And how do you make me and all the rest of us in the community want to buy that product over and over? What can you add to it? What are they going to add to it? I've heard that I think Ed may have mentioned in my post, and he may have mentioned in your interview too, that the packaging is going to be very interesting and very robust. So maybe that's how you do it. I don't know. You know, that's my one thing is I want to be able to get those 13 cards in a play set and be done with it. I don't want one or two of those cards to be something that, you know, I've got to buy 45 copies of this thing to get.
Exactly. I think it's very interesting also because, I mean, there's something about if you have only uniques, it would be 13 cards, you'll be done with it. But we've already seen a card that is not a unique. So, I mean, are they going to include like the full, you know, the playset amount of each card needed? Are they going to do like randomized foils? So if you want the full set of them in foils, you're going to have to buy a ton of them. I mean, there are a lot of options that are interesting, but I'm not exactly sure of the consequences of how that might pan out.
Yeah. And that's what I was wondering. Like, I was hoping that maybe with Dragon Lord, they would bump it up to maybe 50 cards before we had the announcement of 13.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, with 50 cards, you could create a pre-constructed deck product with all the cards that people could buy very easily. And I was even trying to find ways to do it with 13 cards once we had the announcement. And I'm like, well, if this many of them are ordinary. But I couldn't come up with something that was viable, even if the pre-com we assume is not tournament legal size.
Exactly. And I do love that they're just going for it. I mean, they saw a chance to do this collaboration. They are thinking it's going to be a beautiful product, amazing cards, and they just went for it. But I do speculate how the practicalities are actually going to work out. But I do think it's very interesting. And just seeing Ed Beer Jr.'s passion for this project has really been inspiring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, though, at that end of that video they released at the end of the year, Simon did mention they're going back and tweaking some of the card text.
Yes.
And I wonder how much that's going to delay this product. Because I don't know if Q1 is going to happen if we're tweaking the text again.
No, I also feel like if it's big enough of a delay that they feel the need to mention it, then I'm thinking it's not just like a month or two. It might be more than that. And we also do know that just like the production time does require a fair bit of leadway. You need to have it shipped. You need it, there has to be a couple of months of delay for Europe as well. So, I mean, I am a bit concerned about when we're going to land that product, because I think most of us had hoped Q1, maybe Q2, but let's see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for ruining Christmas.
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you guys.
Very welcome.
Yeah. No, I'm still hoping for Q1. That would be great. I'm being the optimist here.
Yes, we need to have a good balance
we need
here,
to have
right?
an optimist.
There you go.
I'm hoping for Q1, and well, frankly, you could just sell me 13 cards by Ed Beer Jr. and having a randomized foil between those 13 cards, that would ensure that I bought a few packs, I believe. I'm just looking really much forward to see, what kind of other cards are hiding in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw the Fire Dragon, I'm like, yeah, I need that in my deck.
Yeah. Well, I've got to think we're going to get a dragon for each element, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I'm expecting that also because it's so built around the elemental concept that is both very, familiar to sorcery, but also seems very integral for Edbeard Jr.'s storyline of everything here.
Yes.
But definitely, it's going to be very interesting. And so far, he's really been enjoying sort of like interacting with the community, spoiling little bits of the paintings to share more details and stuff like that. That has been really cool to see.
Yeah, very much so.
Awesome. So what about like marketing? Because that has always been a hot topic. Do you feel that they need to do more marketing? Would you like to see them be at conventions? Do you want to see billboards? What kind of marketing do you think would work well for sorcery?
No, I think a lot of this all comes down to what Eric and the team wants the game to be. If they really don't want a competitive game that's played everywhere, then you don't need to do marketing. But it does seem that based on what we saw in the video at the end of the year, based on the changes that they're talking about with store championships and regional championships, that maybe they're switching gears some. So in terms of marketing, the best marketing, in my opinion, for any game is going to events, going to Gen Con, going to Origins, going to Spiel, even picking up smaller regional events like Gary Con. Gary Con is a big convention. Well, it's not a big convention, but it's a smaller, it's kind of a medium-sized convention that's focused on D&D, but it has a lot of the artists, the older artists that, maybe they could bring them on. So I think going to smaller conventions like that would also be a really good thing. But again, how far can they stretch themselves? Because there's not a lot of them.
No, exactly. I mean, and we got that like tiny sneak peek into that they're finally growing the team somewhat. They're up to 12 members of the team right now. Sounds like Ruben is finally getting some more support later during maybe January, I think they said. Someone else on the tech team. But they are a tiny team. So, I mean, there's also something about what can we really expect? How many events can they physically actually attend without, really leaving a lot of stuff behind at the desk that needs to be done? What do you think of the idea about like having some sort of like brand ambassadors saying, hey, Joshua, you're going to GaryCon. We would love to give you some decks. Maybe you can set up a booth or like doing something that isn't necessarily the team, but some very, invested people going. Yeah,
I think that's a great idea, but I think they are very careful about the presentation of the game. So I'm not sure how much they would buy into that. I don't think they'd pick me. I can tell you that. They'd pick you guys. They wouldn't pick me.
I don't think so.
But like they could pick Rudosaurus, Archives of the Realm. He is very clean and classy. I think that he could definitely do something like that. I think there are some people who could do that who are very invested in the game. But again, I think we would see hesitancy on the side of the company because they're not sure what people are going to say. And, people go rogue all the time. So,
absolutely. And I think there's also something smart about like maintaining that reputation and like really knowing, okay, we're always the ones representing the game. We know what we said. We know we can stand by it. But I also do think like having people like a committed ambassador and calling it an ambassador and just like vetting people, like, are there certain things you can't say when you're doing this role for the company, signing an NDA, whatever it means? I just think I would also really love to see sorcery at like Comic-Con and like all these packs all these events that really gets out there. Because one thing about Spiel that I really loved, that was the fact that we really got out to a lot of new players. I was there all 4 days and people are just randomly passing by and going, wow, that's beautiful, with one of the banners of the art. They come in, they do a learn to play, they play draft, and they go out and thinking, okay, we're gonna look up this game. And I mean, SorceryCon looked amazing. I had massive FOMO not being there, but it is very already community centered for those who are already in the game. You're perhaps not attracting as many new people. It's more of a celebration of sorcery, which is also awesome.
Yeah, it's also good, with Spiel.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was one lady that attended the Learn to Play event, and then she was like, I'm coming to the tournament this evening. and went down and participated in a sealed tournament. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I think the biggest concern right now is that we don't have enough product, especially in Europe. Even though that the game is fantastic, and even though we got new people hooked, people can't really play at LGSs because there's not any product to be had. So we can't really do sealed events. We can't do much constructed because people can't buy cards. Yeah. So I think, in terms of marketing, they need to get product on shelves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is what they're going to fix with Gothic, right? That's the goal. They're going to fix this. We're finally going to have the product on the shelves. And that's when I started my community, I waited until Arthurian Legends.
Yeah.
I didn't do it when beta came out because I'm like, it's too hard. I've got to convince a store to pick this up. They can't get product, which means they can't make money. So, that makes it even harder to convince a store to pick it up. They've got plenty of other games out there they can make money with. Yeah. How are they going to dedicate time and play space to a game that they cannot financially benefit from? And it sounds like Ars Curiosa is going to make a lot of effort this year to correct that as well. And I think that that's some of the best things that they can do, correcting how they help the LGSs, support the LGSs across the world, and make sure that there's product that they can have on their shelves so that the stores have a reason to carry it, and we can build the community even more.
Exactly. I just wanted to pick up this comment from Survival Gaming saying that it is available from Team Covenant. And I mean, for US people, that's amazing. US people also have a great option with TCG Player. There's Cofoil Heroes, who's a single seller. There are a lot of really good options. And I feel like we're just now catching up. In Europe, we've gotten 2 stores who sell singles, but we don't have we haven't had any central place to go for singles. And product has been very on-off. I mean, even right now, if you go down to our local game store, they were out of beta. They were also out of...
There was hardly any sorcery product on shelves. The only product on shelves was a pre-con box. There was no Arthurian Legends, no beta, no nothing. I was out there to, buy some packs for Sophie to put in her stockings, but no luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what they have to fix. They've got to find a way to fix that, because we need to encourage those stores, because even if they do all these cool events that we're talking about, the PAX Unplugged and Comic Con and all those, at the end of the day, if people can't get the stuff, or people don't want to fight to have to get something, right? That's not something they want to do. If I want to go out and buy something, I'm going to buy it. And if it's a struggle, I may just say, I got other things I can do with my time and my money. And that's what we don't want.
And especially because those people are difficult to win back again. I mean, even if they then later on see that product, they might have used their money on something else, and they're not going to be able to buy stuff twice.
Yeah, exactly. Once you invest into a game, you're invested in that game, at least for a period of time.
Yeah, for sure. So, but I completely agree to your earlier point about also the interview between Drew and Jesse in that very long, very cool video they just released, that there's going to be more sort of formalized, organized play. There's going to be some championships that lead to maybe a national championship, but also just hearing that Drew is actually actively working on making the onboarding for LGSs easier and just having a better flow of communication. I was really happy to hear that.
Yeah. So where do you think they're going to hold the national championship? Because I'm not sure about it anymore.
I'm very interested in knowing if they're going to do multiple, or if they're just going to start with the US and there are a couple of really significant game stores that have had a lot of events and where the owner is also very committed to sorcery. No Land Beyond, just off the top of my head, Gamer Guild, I think there's something around that, and I don't even, what is Salem's store? Let's just give him a shout out as well.
Salem, Games Ahoy. Games Ahoy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
Games
there are
Ahoy.
definitely different stores that could have smaller regional, and then maybe doing a national either at Sorcery Con, maybe Gen Con. I mean, there are some different options.
Yeah. I mean, at Gen Con, that tournament is called the National Championship. It is called that. But it's I do wonder, do they need to build on? Do we need to have a European National Championship and a U.S. National Championship? And then we do a World Championship at Gen Con or Spiel or wherever they want to have it. Maybe rotate it around. Now, that's a lot of growth. That's way down the road, I think. But I think it's exciting to think about that future, that we can have that.
Yeah, and also that they're taking a more active role in committing to doing that. Because one thing I think has been amazing is like seeing the community lift up the mantle and just go full steam ahead on tournaments. But there's no question, we've been involved with Askenras, which was a smaller tournament. I'm involved in a couple of other things right now. But there is a question of like also just finances, being able to finance all of this until you receive some of the ticket money. That's a lot of pressure on a few private individuals to actually handle that. And I don't want to see that be a barrier to not see people grow games in other countries. So I think that's important that they give them some support. Hopefully also some judge support. I would love to see like, you can like apply to get a judge and maybe they pay some of the travel costs, something like that. That would be really beneficial, especially like in Europe where we don't have a lot of, we have some really hardcore players, but everybody really wants to play at the event.
Yeah, no, I know I'm a rare breed. So
yeah, exactly.
I like to judge. There's not a lot of people like that. I get it. But, it is a thing that they're, and it sounds like they're working on a judge program too, which is great.
Absolutely.
And with Ira taking on the job as a codex keeper,
yes,
it's going to be fantastic to have that big document. But getting judges who are well versed in the game and these interactions is going to be difficult, I think, because like you said, everyone wants to play. Just aren't a lot of people who want to take the time to judge, not to mention to travel to judge.
Yeah, and I mean, I also feel like as someone who organizes, I want to be able to like cover hotel and like travel, but realistically, the ticket prices have to go way, way up if we're going to do something like that. And also, there's something about being able to keep it accessible to people. So yeah, there needs to be some compromises, but I am very happy to see that they're thinking about how we can structure it and how they can do like perhaps a more formalized way of supporting people who do want to make events.
Yeah.
So next point on the to-do list there is actually a market discussion. And there's this comment from Hello Mike saying that that person and their partner left Magic due to overprinting. And, they want to see Sorcery continue being a collectible card game. And also has this feeling that collectors are being berated online for actually, wanting their cards to hold value. So what is your take, Joshua, on Sorcery as a collectible card game?
Well, I've said it many times. I think that collectible card games should have value. I don't know that they should be investment grade. But at some point, I may want to move on from a game. And every game I've been a part of, I have been able to sell whatever I have to recoup some of the cost. And that's okay if it's less, because I had the joy of playing the game. The joy was the cost, right? So I don't get all my money back, and that's okay. And I know with CCGs, there are some folks who feel that these products are investment grade material. If that's how they feel about them, fine. Personally, I don't believe they're investment grade material, but I do want them to have some value so that if, for whatever reason, I decide to move on from Sorcery, I can recoup some of my costs to move on to whatever my next hobby is going to be. That's what I think. So that, the overprinting, I worry about those things. I talk about those things. So, but how do you guys feel about it?
I completely agree. That's also one of the things that, has turned me a bit off about Magic. The overprinting, the excessive reprints of cards. Back in the day when I started collecting Magic, you knew that some of the valuable cards would actually hold their value over time. Getting a Vampire Tutor from 5th edition, that was great. And then, seeing, for instance, Vampire Tutor just being reprinted over and over again, and now it's like, what, a $10 card or something like that. It's very low, and you can see the same thing with Doubling Season right now. That card has been absolutely trashed with overprinting. And I think that's a feel-bad feeling, You spend money buying those cards, you spend money on packs, and you spend way more than some of those valuable cards. So seeing them just diminishing in value over time because it's getting reprinted into the ground. I think that's a bit feel bad for me. Also because having those binders, having all the rare cards sitting there, knowing that they are absolutely worth nothing. That's
It's a feels bad.
It
and
is,
I mean,
really
let's be
is.
realistic. Unless we all agree that a card has value, it is only cardboard. And in that case, I don't know how I feel about paying a lot of money for very expensive cardboard. So I completely agree that it needs to be collectible. But as you said, I don't think it needs to be investable necessarily. I think I want some of the cards to have value. And we will be perfectly honest. I mean, a few days before the whole beta reprint debacle went off,
which we're not going to address.
We are not going to address it, just bypassing that.
It's Christmas.
Let's keep the peace. We actually made a live stream saying, hey, we don't think another reprint of beta is necessarily the best idea because there is a good amount sloshing around. But I also do think that we didn't have the data. We didn't know it was going to be 13 cards only for the Dragon Lord. There were a lot of missing pieces of information that I very humbly know that the team knows more than we do. So I'm trusting them to do the right thing. But of course, I want beta at some point to be out of print. And then you can buy the singles and then it can slowly gain some value. But I don't... I think a lot of the value loss we've seen in, for instance, Alpha was also some of the cards going up way too high, way too soon. And I think it's more of a stabilizing period right now. But I don't want to see an endless supply of beta. I want them to do a final reprint. I would love for them to say, this is it. This is, we're printing the precons, we're printing beta. And from now on, what's left is what's left.
Yeah, and also, objectively seen, I think we have some really solid cards in Sorcery. We have the cores, we have the Peace Stones, we have the Ring, we have Four Waters, we have Witch. We have a lot of cards in both Beta and Ethereal Legends. And these cards become even more valuable if you get them in foil, if you're lucky enough to do some of those godly pools. Yeah. And if you compare those prices to prices in other TCGs, I think it's very evident that there are some really heavy hitters and very valuable cards in Sorcery that's also making this game really collectible.
Yes. Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's a very difficult line to walk, right? Yeah. How do you pleasing both these groups isn't easy. We both know that. We get the comments on our don't say that. Don't say this. Well, it's a tough line to walk. And I would love it if it was a perfect world and we all knew exactly how many cards needed to be printed to make both parties happy, but we don't. So it's going to fall one way or the other, and we're going to have to accept and move forward and hope that they rectify it if it goes too far one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this is wildly expensive and not very realistic, but I've been talking to a lot of people in Australia and New Zealand who say that there's a lot of product here still. We have a lot of beta. We still have, I mean, ideally, and it would be very expensive to do so, you could do a buyback of certain products and redistribute. But again, I'm not sure it makes sense. I'm not sure it makes sense in terms of shipping costs, delays, all these things. But I think they really do need to look at the distribution of product as well for this reprint. But again, we don't know how much, we don't know when, we don't know where. But there is something to be considered in where does this product actually go.
Yes, yeah, and I think that they have had enough experience at this point that when we get Gothic, I think it's going to be much better. But on the one hand, you do have to wonder about, there are people who hoard this product. There are people who buy a lot of it. So I think that does make their job much more difficult, because if distributor X thinks they can make a ton of money off this because they've got John Smith who orders 2,000 boxes and then John Smith is like, I'm not buying any more Sorcery. So it's so hard. They're in such a difficult position to judge it correctly.
Absolutely. I don't envy them at all with having to make these decisions and also really just trying to do the best, making sure new players have access, without, killing off all the collectors. And there's definitely, it's a very fine line to tread, to be sure.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention the, MSRP, and when a new set release, it's just this race towards the bottom, and some LGSs are just firing off their product very fast, and then they end up in a situation where they do not have anything to support, in-game store play, and they need to go out and buy it on the open market, and those are the ones that become really sad really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, that's also why I really appreciate all the game stores that take the time to do the event, run the sealed leagues, put in the effort and the time. So I really do hope those are also the ones that are going to benefit from some of the reprints later on. But with Gothic, we're going to have a very, very big set. They said substantially larger than Arthurian Legends. So I'm at least thinking way beyond 300, somewhere between 300 up to 400. I don't think it will be all the way up to 400, but somewhere in that range. Do you think that this will be the core set and then beta will go out of print?
I think it has to be. I think for the game to continue and to keep the collectors placated, yes, this needs to become our core set, which begs the question, do we need to look at formats? Do we, are we gonna, and I'm not saying with Gothic, I'm just saying in 4 years, when beta's been gone, hopefully for a couple of years, will we need to start developing formats? I think that's a big question that they're going to have to look at in the future. But certainly for Gothic, once this hits, if they don't declare that beta is out of print, I will be very concerned for collectors. I will be very concerned for people who hope the game, that the cards have some value later on down the line.
Yeah, and hopefully with a really big set like Gothic, with a theme that can, really expand far and wide in terms of creature types and all these things, I do think that it has the size to be a foundational set that will work for Constructed. It will have those precons everybody's clamoring for right now, and they were definitely teasing up the precons in this last video, mentioning both Chase and Simon beating each other with the new precons and stuff like that. So should we just talk a bit about, speculate a little about what will be in Gothic? Do you have some sort of ideas already about what you want to see?
You guys are going to laugh. I hate this. I hate the idea. I hate horror. I hate horror films.
No.
My biggest fear in life is that someone does cause a zombie apocalypse and I am eaten alive. I do not want to be eaten alive. Of all the ways to die, that is my number one. Don't want it to happen.
Josh, you do not know. Jens is all about the post-apocalyptic thing. He's like, yes, zombie war now. Let's go for it.
I'm one step away from just building a bunker outside and fortifications all around the house.
Yeah, no, that's not me. I don't, so for me, I was really hoping they were going to lean into Angels and Demons, but it sounds like Gothic is going to be Gothic horror, which I enjoy the classics, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, those things I really enjoy. So if we get a nice blend of all of those types of things, and I think that's what they're aiming for, especially based on the card that was previewed.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a wonderful set, and I think it's going to bring in a new group of players that we have not yet had a chance to tap, because there are a lot of Magic players who love Innistrad.
Yeah.
And Gothic, to me, sounds like it's going to have a lot of those same elements. And so I think that there's a whole new group of players that we're going to have the opportunity to tap into, to build a community with, because they're going to see this cool Gothic horror set, and they're going to love it, and they're going to buy the cards up. And obviously, we know Dan Seagrave's coming back. We know Brian Smith is coming back. Oh, yeah. We know that these artists...
And Miller.
We have a list of all the artists we think are coming back for this time around. And I primarily went into a deep dive that is several pages on Gothic art, literature, music, architecture. So I do think that we're going to have a very intense set. I mean, if they're keeping it to like the traditional idea of what Gothic is, it's about intense emotion, it's about terror, the feeling of like fright, things that go bump in the night, sort of playing on the supernatural, of course, as well. So leading into like, but not gory. I mean, they could choose to do that, but usually it's more of a clean aesthetic and more about this psychological fear. Yeah. So I mean, vampires, werewolves, things that play on like the duality of the good and bad fighting in humanity. I think there are some interesting things they can do, but also actually, which I was kind of interested to learn, there's a lot about like the wild, untamed nature. There could absolutely also be some like beautiful nature settings that I could see work out very nicely. And I do think we're going to have some sort of like light creatures, angels, clerics, something to sort of play off the monsters with to make it more even somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And that is my one question. How much of the angels are we going to see? I mean, we had the one card preview at Sorcery Con. Obviously, there are some angels, but I'm not sure how much balance we're going to get. I almost feel like it's going to be here's all the darkness coming upon this little bit of light.
Yeah, and I do think
that would be very, flavorful and spot on.
Yes, and also, I mean, when there is beauty or light, it tends to be of the tragic kind when it is in Gothic literature. So, I mean, there might be some light spots, but usually terrorized by the darkness in some shape or fashion.
Yeah.
But I am interested in seeing what they're going to do. I mean, zombies, undead clearly are going to be an important. We were discussing this just earlier. Do we think that the Death Knight will be a part of a cycle? So there's going to be like a Lord effect with a +1 power for all elements?
I mean, honestly, they could give that to a Dracula-esque character, maybe, or they could do like a lich or something, something like that. Mm-hmm. I definitely think so. I do want to see, when Arthurian Legends was coming out and we were getting the previews, I was always thinking about, what cards in beta are going to really see play? And one of the cards I was all about was Mortality, and that has not happened at all. So, like, everyone's already starting to talk now. Now that we've seen this one card, man, it's going to be Galahad's Day.
For sure. I mean, I would love to see, like, the redemption arc for Mortality. That would be very, very cool.
Indeed. I'm also looking very much forward to see if Matthias Frisk is going to get, some cards in the new Gothic set. I think he is.
Yeah.
That would be spot on.
Yeah, I feel like his style is it fits very, very well with the entire theme of Gothic.
Yeah, we also know that Elvira Zakharova has done some cards for the new Gothic set. She mentioned that in the interview with her.
Yeah.
So I'm looking really much forward to that too. Undead Amazons. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be fun. It would be fun to have like a recurring set of characters who show up as different kinds. But I mean, maybe it was also because Arthurian Legends ended up being so bright and so colorful. Maybe they feel like, okay, we need to get back to like the roots of some more dark fantasy. But I am very interested to see how they're going to do it, because the card the art we saw from Drew Tucker is very clearly based on some specific things. So I'm wondering if we're going to see more from like Dante's Divine Comedy. Are we going to see something from Milton, Paradise Lost? What kind of elements do you want them to pull from?
I mean, I think that would be cool, to take those writers' writings, and then obviously Bram Stoker, take those things and incorporate those. The question is, I don't want them to make it too Victorian.
No.
Right? Don't make it too Victorian, so they've got to be careful there, I think. But I don't think that's too hard to do. Those are probably the things I expect to see, but who knows? I mean, Eric surprises us all the time. There are so many things we didn't expect to see, and we got. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Also in Ethereal Legends, we got a lot of creatures that we didn't really expect to see in a set like that. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some really cool surprises. Also thought that the Crypt Haunt from Ethereal Legends might also
Castle Hunt.
Castle Hunt,
Yeah.
Castle Hunt. That card might actually have been a card that was intended for Gothic, because if you look at it, it's like, why do we have a spirit in Ethereal Legends? And in the background, you see these Gothic arches going up, and I was like, that would fit the bill. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of spirits.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to see spirits and undead and all those things. I think it's going to be great. Sorry.
Whoa.
This dad thing.
Great.
I'm going to have to. Peoples, leave me alone.
Josh is on. You cannot write him right now.
Yeah. But I just in terms of, I would love to see a lot of that Divine Comedy stuff. I actually took a whole college course dedicated to that one book, so I had to read a lot about it. But I can't imagine that they're going to do tons of that. I just think there's too much to cover in a Gothic setting, and they probably want to touch on lots of elements. Because once they do this, I think just like, Eric has said with Arthurian Legends, we will not see Merlin reprinted. We will not see Morgana reprinted. I'm wondering if in the Gothic set, if we're going to have some of these entities that are never going to be reprinted. So he's got to make sure they get in this set. And then the next set, something totally different. And then we don't revisit this genre for a while.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also tricky, because if you're doing one Count Dracula, you better get it right. Because if you're never going back to that again, also in terms of power balance, I mean, you really want to make sure that it can last for the future, that it has some staying power. But on the other hand, you don't want to get on the wrong side of the power creep.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And I think for a game that only releases once a year, you can minimize some of the power creep, because you're not constantly trying to, you can make it last longer. But eventually we are going to get to that point where they're going to have to say, okay, again, back to formats. This set is kind of out of regular play. And I don't know what time that is or how long, but at some point that's going to happen. And I do wonder, I always find it interesting as power creep happens, how certain cards become obsolete. At what point will Philosopher's Stone become obsolete, or will it ever? So I think that's a very cool thing to watch as a game progresses.
Absolutely. I was also looking at Valley of Delight and thinking at some point you might get a Valley of Delight card that will let you change the element every turn. So like at the beginning of the turn, you decide what you want. But I think that's far into the future. But I mean, I see several of the cards that are starting out right now, but could definitely get power crept as we move into the future. But as you said, it's going to be at a much, much slower pace. We're not going to have everything have charge in the next set, because it simply isn't necessary. The pace is nice and slow.
Yeah. I do think that we're going to get a lot of new tribal decks, and I think that's very cool. I don't feel like we've seen a mortal tribal deck really come about with Arthurian Legends. I mean, I know it's there, but in terms of the decks I'm seeing played, I've not seen a real big mortals focus. All the knights, I've not really seen that really hit play. So I want to see what tribal elements we get into Gothic, and can those decks become viable? I'm assuming there'll be enough undead to make a very viable undead tribal deck. But I hope they don't miss those opportunities to make those really cool tribal decks.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's also something as like an old MTG player that is like, it might be one of the components that I look forward to also getting in Sorcery, being able to really put together a tribal deck. I'm really forcing a Fairy Witch deck, but we're not there yet. It's not really working. But at some point, I hope it actually does work, because there is something unique about picking out a minion type that you really enjoy and just trying to make that work, especially for a fun, more casual game like Sorcery.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm also really enjoying my Spirits deck, even though it's not that consistent after having it upped from 40-20 to 50-30. That sort of messed up my curve a bit, but it's still fun. And, when it works, it really does work.
Well, and with Gothic, you're going to get tons of new spirits. So that thing's going to be working. And we just all have to pray to the heavens when they go to 60-40
that there's enough oomph
Yeah, and again,
to serve everyone. Yeah,
I think I'm good with the 60 part. Is the 40 part that I'm a little more hesitant about. But again, we don't know. We don't have the data. If they decide to do a ton of site destruction, if they decide to do some new fun mechanics where you can sort of swap out some sites, there might be a reason that it needs to go to 40.
Yeah. And I think
50-30
has been
back on the site destruction.
Yeah.
Even though I enjoy destroying your sites, I can see from an outside perspective that it's not really that fun.
I have to say, Castles Ablaze is the one card that really gets me all annoyed because getting.
Oh, you mean that card?
Exactly. Very, very annoying to think, okay, I'm good and ready to play my cards. Oh no, there went my only fire threshold.
Yeah. I was surprised that they had as much site destruction in Arthurian Legends as they did. I was like, we all know the history of that and how it went in other games. So I thought it was very interesting that they added so much of that in the new set.
Yes, and almost like, hey guys, we're trying to have fun and be casual here. Let's not add too much of that salt. We don't need it.
Just wait for Gothic. They're introducing counter spells.
Oh no!
Speculating. We don't want that clipped out
Hopefully
of context.
Not. Hopefully not.
No, I think that would mess up the flavor of the gameplay. I really like the ability to just do what I want on my turn and then see your reaction rather than having to interact all the time.
Yeah, it was actually fun. We played a few Commander games in Magic the other night. And at one point, Sophie was like, "Oh, I need to actually be aware of what you're doing and interact with it." I'm like, no, just let it go. Let it go.
Not to mention getting mana starved again. That was, right. This is why I don't miss it.
Yes. Yeah. I think that design element of sorcery, the Atlas and the spell book, that was masterful. I mean, of all the elements in the game, the grid and all those things, separating those two, for me, is one of the most important things that they did to really allow me to enjoy the game, to fix what I think for everyone is a feel bad. Nobody likes to be hosed on their resources in any game.
No, exactly. That combined with the fact that you're always sort of like building the game as you go, and no game is ever truly the same game because there is also something like unexpected happening. That definitely makes it more fun. So I think we've covered a lot of our points, but should we just invite the viewers to leave a comment if there's something you would like for us to talk about? Not the reprints, though, not the reprints, but anything else. We would be more than happy to discuss that.
We have the tragic tale of Dan walking for hours to go to his local LGS to buy cards, only to see it closed. That's that's
a feel bad situation.
That memory has festered in your, consciousness, and you're never going to shake it off.
That's a core memory right there.
Right there.
So, Joshua, is there anything else that you want to bring up and discuss while we see if people have more comments for us in the comment section? Anything else that you think we should bring up?
No, I think we've hit most of the topics, really. I in terms of the one thing that maybe I should mention, obviously, like I said, I like to judge events. There is a lot of unclarity with the rules. Are you aware of the whole illegal targeting issue right now?
Yeah, I've heard someone mention it, but I mean, just for the sake of all the viewers, let's just explain a bit about what's happening there.
So the way the game works, illegal targeting is allowed, and it has to be allowed because if you have a minion that has Void Walk and is in the void, if illegal targeting was not allowed, then that minion could not attack something on the surface of an adjacent site because it is an illegal target. So you have to allow for illegal targeting. And right now, this just seems like a big issue that could lead to serious problems in the future. If you can constantly illegally target with any effect, the way most cards work, you play the card and you do as much as you can. So there could be ways in the future to declare illegal targets with a card in order to get a secondary effect on that card. And I think that could lead to a lot of abuses in the future. And I'm really hoping that Ira, in his lead on this area, addresses some of these weird, quirky things. So that, I don't know if it's maybe just saying, okay, creatures with Void Walk can declare illegal targets. Creatures with Burrowing can declare illegal targets for the purpose of their ability. It's actually built into the ability. But there are lots of little things like that that actually worry me about, especially once we get more competitive play. You're going to have to know these things. And so if they do not get a lot of clarification out there, a lot of this document laid out very clearly, I think running these big events that they're now championing is going to become problematic because, like we just mentioned, there's not enough people running around to judge them, let alone that know about these complicated situations and how to actually make them go.
Yeah, and I think that is an interesting point, but also that means you do need some sort of like official judge program to make sure that the people who are judging the really big events, really do have that niche information about the rulings. We have Nicholas saying here in chat, if you have a judge quiz that I can take. Do you know?
There actually is a judge quiz. It's actually administered by, I believe, David Floating Skull has it, that he uses it for Sorcery Con. I believe I can probably get a copy of that if I need to, if someone would like it. Or you can probably reach out to Floating Skull directly. I'm sure he's happy to let people see it and take it. I know Ira has designed one as well that he maintains. And I think that they're pretty free with those, letting people kind of see them, although it could be an issue where we're going to start moving back on that because we don't want people to know the questions because we want to make sure they can pass the test. So I don't know how restricted they want to be about that yet. So that could be a change, but there are judge tests out there that I know Ira and David had both created and used for the big events. And they might be the best people to reach out for those.
Nice. Good to
Good
know.
to know, yeah.
So maybe just rounding it out, what are you looking forward to participating in or playing, or what kind of fun things do you have coming up in the new year?
So immediately in the very near future, there's supposed to be a very a draft event that's going to be in Louisville. It's very exciting. There's not a lot of there is some play in the Midwest, but I have to drive about an hour and a half for it. So Louisville is only an hour south of me, so that's nice that it's a little bit closer. So I'm looking forward to building my local community that I've started here and actually hosting events and getting some play. And we've got about 8 people right now. I'd like to get to 16 just so that I have a reliable group of people that are within, say, an hour radius. That's really my goal for the upcoming year, to try to get that community established. Obviously, I'm going to Gen Con. I'm sure I'll make it to Sorcery Con unless they move it somewhere that, I don't know, they move it to Alaska. I don't know if I'm going to fly up there. But I'd love to get over to Spiel, but I already talked to my significant other, and she said, if you're going to Europe, you have to take me with you. So
that's fair.
So is she playing sorcery as well, or could she?
No, she is like, I don't understand what you're doing. So
okay, I mean that seems fair. What about us? What events do we have coming up?
Well, we do have Askermask Chapter 2 coming up. And, well, as you said, with the judging, that's actually, maybe the only problem with this event, that we are actually really needing judges. I think I might go around judging a bit. I think Nicholas is also going to help us out. But all in all, we don't have, we don't have people overtly qualified to do the judging. But luckily, Heiner, the owner of the game store, has this golden rule that just go with the flow.
Yeah, it's about having fun.
It's about having fun.
Casual.
So, when a ruling comes, just accept it. We're doing our best, and we are just there to have fun. And I think that works because it's a very chill group, and it's, some really nice people. But of course, I could see, complications in maybe other tournaments where the prize pool is bigger. The high incentive to get some of those really cool prizes, the more people are going to, act like those rulings really matter.
Yeah. For sure. And I mean, Ask and Rask, which is like part 2. We did the first like this year and doing the next one March 8th. So if you're European, you're interested in coming to Aachen in Germany to play, that's definitely an opportunity. It is very much about getting new people in. It's about enjoying it, having fun. There's a casual dinner. So that's very much the chill vibe focus. What else do we have coming up for the next year?
I don't know.
I mean, we have been talking about Sorcery Con. Definitely, if they announce it early enough, we're going to try and see if we can make it. But it really depends on
one of us.
Yeah. It depends on the location, and it also depends on when they can announce it, because plane tickets they increase as we get closer and closer to the event. So I really hope to hear something fairly soon. That would be very nice.
Yeah, not to mention that we're both teachers.
Yeah.
So there will be some times of the year where it's not possible to travel.
Yeah.
Because, you might be in the middle of exams or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then work is definitely going to say no.
Yeah. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah. So, but hopefully we would love to make it to the US, because we have a lot of people, yourself, a lot of other people we've been talking to for literal years now. And it would be really nice to meet people in person and just hang out, get to play some casual games, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I am planning on making some trips to Europe. My significant other is demanding that happen. So I'm hoping maybe if I'm over there sometime, we can meet up. So that is something that I've kept in the back of my mind. So, and maybe, in terms of your events, I mean, if they do get to some point where they can help pay for, I'm happy to fly to Europe. I'd love to go to Europe. I'd love to come. I've been to Vienna and spent 3 months there. I've been to Paris. There's a lot more places on my list I want to come over. So
for sure. And I mean, that would also be nice to see some of the organized play that they're talking about. If you could apply for like getting some cost covered, or just like something that would make it more feasible to get someone and fly them in, that would be amazing.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And honestly, like the virtual judging that we did at Siege at the Core, myself and Zach, that worked out very well. So, I think something like for the event you've got coming up on March, I mean, I would be happy to help with something like that if I can work it into my schedule and we can do a virtual thing. So that's really not a problem. And I think right now it takes us, right? It's all about us being the champions and making this stuff happen. And hoping that Eric's Curiosa, really does all the cool things they're saying they're going to do next year.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. And I think that's also what makes it work, right? I mean, it's us coming together, it's building community, it's content creators talking across multiple platforms, hanging out, doing collaborations, just really like showing up for the community and help building the community.
And all the cool guys in the chat.
Absolutely.
Don't forget about those.
Absolutely. We
right
couldn't
now,
do
48
anything without.
Yeah.
And we're very grateful for all 48 people showing up. Please do smash the like button if you are having a nice time. That really does help the video. It's such a YouTuber thing to say, but it really does make a difference.
The algorithm is just, such a bitch. Yeah. It really hurts. So yeah, we need to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, Joshua, thank you so much. I think we're rounding off the conversation here. Maybe just a final question. Ooh. What set would you like? Because, of course, hearing you say, Gothic, not really my thing. What is your thing? What's the set you're dreaming about?
So, for Warhammer Fantasy, I played Lizardmen, which has a Mesoamerica theme. So, I would like to see something either Mesoamerican or Lizardmen-like. I think that would be very cool, but you get into some IP issues because we know that particular company is very particular about their IP.
Yeah.
But I think a Mesoamerican set would be a very cool thing to do with, that element. Also, Eric's Curiosa has mentioned they're trying to grow that South American community.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a nice little tribute to them to do a Mesoamerican set with all of that type of a theme. But there's lots of other things that I love that I would be happy to see just about anything. I do prefer fantasy genre mostly, but there's so much stuff you can do. I will say the one thing I don't think I'd want to see is too much steampunk.
Yeah.
The problem I have with steampunk is that it's like, well, if you're smart enough to make this, then why haven't you jumped over to this yet?
Exactly. There's something about like it gets a bit inconsistent. Like, okay, but we could also have an automobile, and even saying that and thinking about a car in sorcery, it's just like, nope. Let's just stay all clear of that.
Yeah, that's the classic, problem with fantasy, that you have this, 10,000-year-old sword that needs to be reforged, and then you can win the battle. It's like, so in 10,000 years, you haven't evolved at all? What's wrong with you? It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I also
what would you guys like to see?
Fantasy focused. And I mean, I have to say it every time until it happens. I'm manifesting it from Eric's mind. Greco-Roman mythology, like give us all those big, epic, Homeric, tales. There's loads of monsters. There's gods. There's Pandora's box. I mean, it's so culturally rich. There's so much to dive into. I would love to see it, and I think just off the top of my head, there are so many of the artists who already do something that is sort of similar. We've already seen it started in Alpha. We have Amazon Warriors. We do have little like hints
Imperial
to it.
Road.
Imperial Road. I think it would be a very natural extension to sorcery. It would fit very well with the core set also.
The rise and fall of the empires.
Exactly. That would be very nice. What about you? Favorite set?
I don't know. I think Greco-Roman set would be really cool. I would also really much enjoy a sort of Nordic mythology sort of set. That would be really cool. The introduction of gods could be cool too.
Yeah.
But that might be too powerful. I don't know.
That might be creeping it a bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe the gods could be new avatars or something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool too, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, Joshua, thank you so much for coming. It has been so fun, and what a great conversation. I think we touched on all the points without getting into massive disagreements here.
We did.
It was absolutely lovely that you would come on over, and if you feel like it would be fun to do again sometime in the next year.
Definitely. Without a doubt, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me come on. I know working out the time schedule was a little bit tough. I think it's hilarious that we settled on the day after Christmas. But thank you both. I really appreciate it. And definitely. Let's do it again. And we'll bring together the two different sides of the community.
We had been doing a lot of internal jokes about like the positive penalty and the warmonger, and I think it went absolutely fine. We balanced each other out nicely, right?
No, it was good. It was great, and I mean, let's face it, you're not always positive. I'm not always negative, even though everyone thinks it. So, but let people label, and we'll just keep making content.
Indeed.
Exactly.
And also, we are not part of Eric Curiosa. We are not bought. We do not work for them. Exactly. Apparently, we need to say that all the time. Yeah. But
it's a thing that comes up a lot. So we do have to keep saying it.
Yeah. And also, to all of you in the chat, thank you for joining. We hope that you had a very Merry Christmas, and we wish you all a very Happy New Year too.
Absolutely. We will see you guys. And you must finish off with your epic close of every video. Take it away, Joshua.
Keep on contesting the realm.
Perfect. We're going to end it right here. Bye, guys.
Bye.